Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. I can't hear y'all, man. I need a little more energy than that. Good morning, good morning, good morning. All right, that's what I'm talking about. Listen, I need all the owner-operators. I need all carriers. I need everybody in the trucking industry to come to the stage right now. Come to Pro Talks Theater. I don't care where you're at. I don't care what you're doing. I need everybody here. You got about 2 minutes to do that. All right? I need everybody to come on up. You too. Come on up. Come on over. We're going to run out of seats, but that's all right. You need to hear what's going to happen right now. So everybody come on up. How's everybody doing? Everybody feel good? How are y'all enjoying Matt so far? It's been amazing, right? All right, cool. My name is Ramel Watley. I'm the president and founder of Truck and Hustle Media. We hold Truck and Hustle podcasts. Some of you guys may have heard of that, right? It's a podcast where we talk to the most amazing entrepreneurs and thought leaders in the transportation and logistics. We also have Freight Fest, which is our annual conference that we do every year, taking place this year in Houston, Texas, September 28th through October 1st. All right? I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been in this industry for over 20 years, so I'm just like a lot of you all. All right? Today we're going to talk about the most important thing on everybody's mind. What's that? I can't hear you. What we all care about? We all care about money. Now, there's a lot of other important things besides money, but obviously, when you got more money, things are a little bit better, right? Anybody who tells you that's not the truth, they're lying. All right? So we're going to get into it. I brought together an amazing panel for you guys today, right? These are the people that I rely on for my information, right? What we do at Truck and Hustle is we go to the experts, the people who have the information that can help you guys out to help you grow your trucking business, grow your transportation business. So I brought them together on this stage with me today. So I'm going to introduce them, and I want you to give them a warm welcome, round of applause as we do that, all right? Y'all with me? Y'all with me? Yeah. Man, y'all energy is low, man. I got energy. I don't know about y'all. I was waiting for that. That's what I'm talking about. All right, so I'm going to introduce my panel. And some of you may know these people already, but just act like you don't. Act like they're strangers and just get real excited for me, all right? All right, so first, we have who I like to call a practitioner. A practitioner. You guys know what a practitioner is? What's a practitioner? What's a practitioner? A genius. What's another word for practitioner? A doer. Somebody who studies the game, right? Somebody who practices what they preach, right? This man right here is a practitioner of the industry. He's been in the industry 20 plus years. I don't want to date him because he's a young man like myself, right? But he's been around. He's done everything from drive the truck, right, to own the truck, and now he consults with people all over the country, all right? This is Mr. Adam Wingfield from Innovative Logistics Group. I want you to give him a hand.
Appreciate it.
All right, next we have my partner, our partner, Truck and Hustle's partner, OTR Solutions, very own Grace Marr.
Hi.
And then last we have, you guys may be familiar with this man also, my man Dean Croak from DAT. All right, so what we're gonna do this in very true Truck and Hustle fashion. We don't need any slides. We don't need any of that. We don't need no presentation. We're just gonna go off the top of the head because that's where we shine. That's where our true genius comes out. It's not scripted. This is just real, uncut, raw. We're gonna talk about the industry, where it's at today and where it's going. All right, y'all with me? Y'all ready for that? Are y'all with me? Are y'all ready for that? I need more energy. All right. So first, we're going to kind of go into Q&A form. We're going to talk to Adam. We're going to talk to Grace. We're going to talk to Dean and just talk about what's happening right now and how it's impacting you guys' bottom line. Let me ask a question. Who's making money right now in the trucking industry? Raise your hand. Keep your hand up. Keep your hand up. You guys making good money. Who wants to make more money in the trucking industry? Raise your hand. Okay. We got some things in common. We want to make some money, y'all. All right, so that's a good thing. I saw some of the crowd making money. So who's not making money? Let's see that. Who's struggling right now? Who's struggling? Tell me why you're struggling. Shout out. Why are you struggling? What's that? You. Poor business decisions. How about you? Why are you struggling, sir? You just started. You're new. You're new in the game. That's fair. Who else raised their hand? Who's struggling? Why are you struggling? Just started. All right, good. So we got a little bit for everybody, right? Some of you guys just started. You're getting in the industry, making some poor decisions. So we have to figure out how to get you on track. All right? So let's do that. So listen, I'm going to start with Dean, right? Because Dean is with DAT. He is a scientist when it comes to the freight market, understanding the trends, the ebbs and the flows, and what's kind of going on, right? And that's kind of where it starts, the market. So Dean, my first question to you, sir, is what is the outlook on the industry right now? What is going on in 2023 as it different to what happened in 2022 that's impacting our small carriers and small fleets today?
We're still coming out of the side effects, the after effects of the pandemic. So we still haven't returned to normal. At best, demand for carriers will be flat this year, but I think it'll be like a sine wave curve. It'll be a very slow first half and then it'll pick up strong in the second half, but over the course of the year, it'll be flat. So when I talk about demand, that's demand for things you haul, right? So I think it'll be flat. Whereas in the last 3 years, it's been like a roller coaster ride. And what we're still suffering from right now is there's a lot more carriers than loads. It's a pretty simple equation, and that's keeping downward pressure on rates. Our forecasting doesn't expect rates to bottom out until sometime in the second half of this year on the spot market, and then contract rate markets will bottom out sometime in the middle of the year and pick up again. So right now, for the next 3 months, it's going to be really tough sledding for everybody. And that's what, if we keep diesel coming down, which I'm really worried about heading into summer, I think that's a real wild card we've got to watch. The next 3 months are going to be really tough for the trucking industry because this was always going to be a quiet start to the year as a side effect of all the massive imports and building activity that went on last year. We're still suffering from some of that right now. But we've still got a lot more trucks in the market than loads. There's still downward pressure on rates. So if you're struggling, you've probably got to be at no time in your career better at negotiating and understanding your operating costs and standing very firm on what it takes to run a truck. Because you could, as Adam will tell you, you can go out of business pretty quickly if you make some bad decisions. So rates are coming down. What I will tell you though, when I look at rates generally, we talk about our national average rate across the board. If you look at dry van national average rates at $1.70 a mile, that's excluding fuel. So at $1.70 a mile, you can't really run a truck on that and survive longer term and build any equity in that. But if you run regionally, there are some really good opportunities regionally, short haul, 300-400 mile, Southeast, Pacific Northwest, New England. Nobody wants to go to where I live in New England, where the way they drive is no surprise. But that means that if a lot of people don't want to go there, what should you be thinking? Go there. Do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. And that's where the opportunities are.
I love that. I love that. I love that.
Might be
Adam.
Yep.
Adam. You know, it's supply and demand right now is basically what Dean is saying, right? To simplify things. For the new entrants, the new carriers in here, how do you survive? What do you need to focus on?
So, you know, when it comes to cost, when it's running a truck, you know, when you got two costs that are really, really important to you. You got your operational fixed and you got your operational variable. Your operational variable costs are costs that you can control. You know, that's fuel costs. And when I mean fuel, you have a little bit of control over fuel costs. You have control over the consumption. You have control over the selection. You may not have control over what's posted at the pump, but you do have a little bit of the control of that. But then also, you got to make sure that if you're just getting started, one thing I will tell you is that this year, truck prices have decreased by about 20-25%. So you're buying the actual asset at a lower price, but you have to be very, very careful because last year, one of the things that the fleets struggled with was getting new inventory. As a small carrier, your trucks were secondhand typically from fleets, right? And they would exit their fleets at about 300, 400,000 miles. Well, guess what? Now, the trucks that are hitting the used truck marketplace, the mileage is starting to increase. And when that mileage is increasing, now you're getting an asset that could potentially cost you a little bit of more mechanical upweight down the road. So you got to be very, very careful about that. Now, one thing I will tell you is that we are in what I consider a buyer's market. And that's a market, it's a low market. It's a market that you can insert yourself in the marketplace at a lower cost. However, you got to be very, very careful about that. You also have to be honest with yourself. And when I say be honest with yourself, if you're staring down, if you're an owner operator and you got a bad driving record, let's just say that, your insurance rates, or if they're approaching 24, 25, 30,000, then it's probably not what you want to do right now. You want to make sure that you're being very, very smart, lower those specific fixed costs. When you're purchasing your truck, be very, very prudent in truck purchasing. And one thing I will tell you is that when you purchase a truck, do not purchase a truck until you can get a J Pro on that truck. I always recommend you get that J Pro on that truck because you want to know. It's just like when you go to the doctor's office or anything, you want to know what's going on so you know what you're facing. And that J Pro report, which is an ECM readout, which is a readout of your engine module, it will tell you the history of that truck. So that way you can make a better decision. Now is the time to make great decisions. And what I mean by making great decisions, and some of you I see just follow me from the talk that I had a couple of minutes ago, but now is the time where you as the CEO need to take that hat and you need to pull it down really, really tight. And you've got to make great decisions about your business. The two things I'll tell you: can you survive? Yes. Is there potential to fail? Yes. You have to decide on what side that is. And one of the most important things to do to decide that is that you have to dig in and control what you can control. But I believe, and like Dean said, if I'm a carrier, and one of the things that he stated was, he said, we got more carriers than we got loads. Y'all heard that, right? That's called your load to truck ratio. That's the national load to truck ratio. However, just like he said as well, there are pockets where the load to truck ratio means that you have more loads than you have carriers. So when you operate, you need to make sure as a business owner, I am studying the market that I'm going to position myself in. I'm not going to go to a market where there are more carriers than there are loads, right? I've got to understand that. So know your numbers. Study the market. If you didn't like studying in school, then I hate to tell you, I got bad news for you. You need to study. Study the market.
That's right.
And be prepared for that.
I love that. I love that. Great advice. Let's talk about cash flow, right? We got to have cash to run our businesses. Grace, how do we manage cash flow in our trucking businesses?
The best way to do that is honestly with a factoring company. Factoring allows you to get paid quickly, reliably by a team of dedicated and experienced people that do this every single day. In a down market, actually more people are factoring than ever because cash flow is so important. When you deliver that load, you need to go ahead and get paid. We are your back office, your accounting team that allows you, upon delivery, get us that POD. We will buy the invoice at a small discount. We will go and bill the broker and make sure that you get paid immediately. Not all factors are created equal. You want a partner in this business. OTR considers themselves your partner, ourselves your partner, making sure that you get paid. The way I see it is, this bill may be what you need to make your truck note, your insurance note, your kid's birthday cake, a prescription drug. I don't know, but if you send it in, we want to make sure that you're getting paid for that. But on top of that, we want to make sure that we're also providing other solutions that allow you to get ahead in this kind of market and understanding what your rates are. And I know you were just saying you've got to know your numbers, but this is more than just a rate per mile. This is honestly, and we've talked about this, all of us, a revenue per day. You can't just chase the loads. You've got to make sure you understand how much revenue you're making to operate that truck. OTR allows you to factor your invoices and understand how much you're getting paid all in one place. Many people don't know factoring is a tax-deductible business expense. You come to us at the end of the year, you say, how many loads did I factor? What was that? And we provide all of that information rather than you chasing payments. Right now, a lot of brokers out there, they bought a lot of assets last year at high rates. They're functioning differently as well now with their cash flow, and they're taking longer to pay. So, it's very important that you get paid upon delivery. We want to do that for you, and we want to be a great partner for you.
Thank you, Grace. Appreciate that. Dean, another question for you, sir. We talked earlier about, you kind of talked about some regions that we should be kind of focusing on. Can you dive a little bit deeper into that? What regions should we be going into? What regions should we be staying out of right now?
So there's a lot of seasonality you've got to watch. So to pick up on some of the themes that Adam and Grace have been talking about, being a student of what you haul is absolutely critical. Don't go reading, don't get on Facebook and talk to truck groups. Get on Facebook and follow the USDA about what produce is moving. Follow the US Census Bureau about how many single-family homes are being built. Follow the steel industry. Follow, how many 1,000 tons of frozen beef are in cold storage. We're eating less beef. There's more cold storage volume growing, which means there's less refrigerated meat to haul. So understanding supply and demand is really critical. You've got to become a student of what it is you haul. If you find a niche in a market, and this gets to Ramel's question, 63% of single-family homes get built in the southeast. Right? A single-family home is the most freight-intensive of all homes. Right? You're going to run 5 to 6 flatbed loads per single-family home. So if you want to specialise, there's a market in the southeast where there's a lot of flatbed freight moving for single-family housing construction. So if you've got a flatbed, you'd think about the southeast. How would you know what demand looks like? Well, the US Census Bureau publishes on the 15th of each month a report that says how many building permits have been applied for. A building permit gets applied for a few months before the home starts. So if you know how many single-family permits are being applied for and the direction, are they going up or down, it tells you which region you need to be thinking about where there could be more activity. Right? So that's... I see...
We're all right. We're good. We're good.
We're good. So that's a flatbed example. Dry van's a little bit harder. Because it's, you've got to look at a lot more lanes, there's a lot more volume moving. But we're heading into produce season, so produce season starts soon. Vidalia onion pack date was announced on April 19. Why is that important? Well, there's only 13 counties that grow the Vidalia onion, and there's going to be a ton of freight coming out of Georgia. But it also coincides with peach season. And produce season in the US starts in the southeast in the middle of April. And then it picks up and goes all the way through. You'll see about a 25 cent per mile rise in spot rates through July 4. Now, so that's good if you're in the southeast. Florida's a little bit quiet at the moment because of the weather. The southeast is going to pick up. The other thing you've got to watch is, and again, this gets to where I would normally say if you've got a refrigerated van, Salinas Valley, broccoli, strawberries, lettuce, Salinas, Fresno, you're going to make some pretty good coin coming out of there with long-haul reefer. The problem is they've just had 14 atmospheric rivers come through that area and damage a lot of the crops. So we've got the same problem we had last year, except last year's produce season was damaged by drought. This year in California, it's going to be slowed down by rain, the exact opposite. So that's why you've got to study what's going on in these regional markets. This information's out there and it's free. And if I could give a shameless plug again for our show, we talk about this every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern on the DAT IQ show. So if you want to get all this stuff, you just got to listen to us ramble on every week.
Got it. Thank you for that, Dean. Who's running their business right now in the spot market? Raise your hand. You're on the load boards, you're on the spot market. Raise your hand high. Don't be ashamed. Just playing. What about dedicated freight? Who has contracts in the audience? Raise your hand. We have contracts. All right, Adam, talk about it. Difference between spot market freight, dedicated freight. What's the difference? Talk about it. How do you get to those dedicated lanes?
So one of the things, a lot of trucking companies, they start off on the spot market because it's easy. Spot market is, hey, I buy a truck and I go get a load board subscription. But the spot market wasn't designed for you to build your business around it. The spot market was designed to get you back to what we call your head haul market. So your home base is your outbound freight. And one of the things you want to get to the point is you want to get your point of all of your outbound loads are going to be contracted or direct road loads. And then your inbound freight becomes spot market freight. But one of the things that I hear, and it rattles my cage, is people don't think that because you have one truck that you can get on contracted market freight. I have a big issue with that because that's a lie. The thing is that you have to have differentiators and you have to establish your business differentiators so that you can go out and you can talk to shippers and people that are in your area. One thing that I see, and I see it on Facebook all the time, and I love that what Dean said, that, don't get in these trucking groups to get information, because what these trucking groups are going to just tell you, well, you're an idiot if you use a load board, just go up to a shipper and get your own customers. Well, it's not that easy. I hate to tell it to you. You can't just walk up, because the reason why it's not that easy, because everybody's personality ain't built for it. right? Some of us in here are like me. We're introverts who pretend that we're extroverts. Some of us can go up and talk to people and you're good with, and some people just don't have the capacity or the skill set to communicate and be able to have those pitch conversations with shippers. Now, one thing I will tell you, I think it's a very good marketplace. It's called Emerge Market. If anybody in here has heard of Emerge Market platform, anybody heard of Emerge? I got a couple of people. Well, if you're looking for contracted freight and you're a carrier and you want to get dedicated freight, but you don't want to necessarily have those conversations, if you go to emergemarket.com, you can sign up as a carrier on Emerge Market, and you can actually bid on contracted opportunities right there on Emerge platforms, and you can be awarded contracted lanes. Contracted market, just like, like Dean said, the one thing about that contracted market, what people don't realize, and this number may have changed, but the spot market is this. 90% or 85 to 90% of all freight that moves in the country is by contract. I've got a relationship with the shipper, and then we're good. Spot market freight is what we got left over and we can't cover.
That's right.
What causes spot market freight is what they call tender rejections. Tender rejections is when Dean has or Grace has 10 loads that she tenders every week, but one week Grace is like, you know what, I'm just going to take this week off. Almost 10 of my trucks are going to sit. Well, guess what happens those 10 loads? They end up on DAT, right? So that is the difference. So we got all these folks that are in the room that are focused on contracted freight, then you don't necessarily are worried about the things that fall onto the spot market. But if you rely on the crumbs, and I hate to tell y'all that it is, because there are different dynamics, because you got shipper to dedicated carrier first. The dedicated carrier can't handle it, then it goes shipper to broker, who has dedicated relationships. And if the broker can't get that covered on that point, then you have shipper to broker to spot carrier. And as a spot market carrier, you're at the very, very, very bottom of that transaction. So when it comes to those rates, they're being pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. So one of the things, Ramel, that I'm big on is, if you ever hear me, and if you heard me for the last however many years, I want you to get your own customers. I want you to run your own business. I want you to go get your own contracts, and you can do that, but you got to come out of your shell, and you have to make sure that you are a student of the industry, and then you have to be a student of your own business, because you can't just knock on Kimberly-Clark or Procter & Gamble and be able to walk in and get freight. That's not going to happen.
That's right.
But if you're from a small town like me, Alkaloo, South Carolina, I can go down the corner and there's a shipper that's only got 2 dock doors, and when I look at those trucks that come in and out of that dock doors, and I see that those trucks are not Werner, Schneider, or J.B. Hunts, and I see those trucks are mom and pops, that tells me I got an opportunity, because they're using small carriers or they're using a 3PL to facilitate their loads. Yep. So you got to be smart about it. You got to be a student. I'm big on student. You have to be very studious about this, but we got to differentiate the two. And I want to see more people focus on contracted freight. I want to see more people that are focused on taking care of their own businesses with their own customers and being able to cut out the middleman. Because if you've got a situation where you got to go through a broker, yeah, you're gonna pay. It's a convenience. You're using a broker for convenience. That's what it is. It's a convenience fee. I don't care how you want to slice it, but it's exactly what it is. You're paying a convenience fee, and if you don't want to pay that convenience fee, then you got to build your business to be able to have your own customers.
Nah, I love that. Amazing information. Dean, you want to add on to that?
Yeah. No, go ahead.
So one of the things we've seen, this is a really good point Adam makes about getting your own customers and contract freight, right? Because that's the goal, is have a good mix of spot and contract. The one thing that's changed in the last year that we have not seen shippers do before en masse. Normally, when you talked about tenders, tenders from a shipper goes through EDI into a TMS system. All the loads drop in through this electronic data interchange process, and then the big carriers accept and reject those loads based on whether they've got trucks or the rate in the spot market's higher on that lane. Normally, when they go out to bid all of their contract lanes, they put all of their lanes out to the market, and they try and get the cheapest carrier at the top of the list. That's the goal. What they did differently in the last year, they didn't do that, because 80% of contract freight moves on 20% of the lanes, right? It's a very heavy concentration ratio. But 80% of the lanes are very low volume lanes, and that's where a lot of tender rejections come from. Because if a shipper's got 1 load a month or 1 load a week, what's the chances that Knight Swift has a truck in that town? It automatically gets rejected and then goes to the broker market. What they did differently, and I think this is the opportunity for those that are struggling, and you're in a town and you see a shipper and you see all those big, Schneider trucks in there and it's a big volume shipper. Remember that the shippers that are contracting to those carriers are sending their low volume lanes not through the tender process, they're sending it direct to brokers. So let me say that again. Instead of them sending every load through the contract market and the tender process, right? They're sending their high volume lanes to their big carriers, and the low volume lanes they're sending direct to the brokers. Why? Because it's a strategic purchase in the spot market as opposed to getting handed to you because there's no trucks left and you're going to pay through the nose to move the freight. So there is opportunity. I would say if I was in the trucking business now, I'd be going to big shippers talking about their low volume lanes where you got a load a week, a load a month. I'm your person. Because they're looking for a strategic purchase, not this sort of Dutch auction that you see in the spot market at the end of the day based on how many trucks are sitting around looking for a load. That's where I think there's an opportunity.
No, I love that.
I got one more too.
Go ahead, Grace. Jump
got
on
one
it.
more.
Let's go.
So, and to this point, I don't know. I think brokers will always have a place in this market because you think about it, shippers don't necessarily want to start vetting carriers and figuring out who should be on their freight and managing those loads and calling and figuring out where it is and will it deliver on time. I mean, that is the service that 3PLs provide. So the idea being that if you're new and you're just starting out, you need to say to the broker, I might be new, but no one's going to give better service. I'm going to show up on time. I'm going to deliver on time. You're going to be glad you booked me on this load. I can promise you that. And you want to be able to say, I'll be that dedicated carrier for this lane. Then you continue to give that great service. That shipper is so excited to see you when you pull up because you are always on time. You're not going to fall off that lane. They're not going to want to post it anymore. That broker's going to give it to you. At the same time, we have to be careful about not undercutting each other. The brokers on contract or spot freight are trying to just find the lowest rate, and somebody always takes it. And it's so, it's tough. We see that at OTR. We have all the data on all the lanes and the history of them, and they just keep going down. You guys got to hold, and somebody stop taking it, and also representing yourself as an established trucking company. They know from your MC how old your authority is. But are you abctrucking@gmail.com, or are you saying, I am abctrucking.com, I am established? At OTR, we have the product Elevate. We will build a website for you and help you look like the established trucking company that knows what they're doing like you are. So you got to set yourself up for success in those ways.
That's right. I want to say with you real fast, Grace. What about like credit checks? How important is that? Because we're talking about running the lanes, but getting paid is the most important thing at the end of that, right?
Yeah,
Talk
absolutely.
about some trends that you're seeing in the industry with chargebacks and so forth and so on, and why credit checks are so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, credit checks, they're so important because you want to get paid, right? At the end of the day, you got to make sure I ran the load, will I get paid? And that's where factors come in. As I mentioned, we've all been doing this for years. We have extensive credit on all of the brokers, the new ones, the old ones. We know what to look for. Factors have to make sure if they're buying the invoice from you that they are going to get paid back. That's why it matters to us. There's security in knowing that who you're running with, we can get paid. So we want you to look at that up front. But not all factors are created equal. At OTR, you can still take the load even if we don't approve it. Although I'll tell you, many of our carriers will say, if you guys won't buy it, I don't want to run it, because there's probably a reason. And the other side of that is when I say we want to be a partner, there's some factoring companies out there, and they're great ones, but, they may just be more like a parent company. They give you the rules. Yes, no, you can run it, we will buy it, that sort of thing. Or you can have the partner that says, you know what, I can't approve this broker for whatever reason. You can call. We'll tell you why. Why, you can still run it if you want, but we can't buy it, and here's why we're not going to buy it, and then it's your decision whether or not you want to do that. Because chargebacks, fraud, they're not two of the same thing. Fraud is always going to, I hate to say this, unfortunately, it exists in our industry because of chameleon carriers and because of double brokering. Chargebacks, on the other hand, in my opinion, that is a function of the best rate verifications you can get from your factor. You don't want a factor that just buys invoices from you. You want a factor that buys invoices at the rate that you should be paid, so you're not charged back later. In other words, you take a load for $1,000, you took a fuel advance from the broker, you submit it to OTR, maybe you're only due $500, but OTR then just pays you $1,000 because we didn't verify it correctly. You're like, oh, okay, well, but now fast forward 45 days when we get paid and we realize we were short paid, we have to come back and say, we didn't realize you got a fuel advance. We need that $500. In this market, you're like, no, you can't. That's totally going to affect my cash flow. So OTR, and factors, we have to get that right. And for us, that's incredibly important. We want to make sure we're getting you paid the amount that you deserve up front. Do you deserve detention and layovers? We will fight for that. But chargebacks are a very, very big deal, and you got to watch out for those in your factoring relationships. How well does your factor verify up front to get you paid correctly the first time?
Got it. Thank you, Grace. Go ahead, Adam.
I just want to piggyback on what Grace said, and most importantly about factoring companies is that not all factoring companies are created equally. And one thing I want to tell you that you want to make sure that you look for, you got to be careful with the factoring companies that, you might pay 3%. Let's just throw a 3% number out there on factoring. You might have the opportunity where you see a factoring company say, hey, you know what, we'll factor your loads at 1%. Be careful, because you need to dig down and read the fine print. Those 1% factoring companies out there may charge you for every single time that you submit an invoice, every time you do a credit check, every single page of a documentation that they got to scan. If you have any issues with any paperwork, they may charge you. So you got to look at those incremental charges, because that's important. And number two, and this is very, very important as well when it comes down to factoring, from a carrier perspective, everything's up for negotiation. And when I say that is as you increase your volume, as you increase the trucks that you have in your authority and your fleet, and as you're making more money, me and Grace need to have a conversation like, hey, that 3%, can we got any little wiggle room with that?
That's right.
Right? But
That's
those are the
right.
things that you have to understand, is that you got to be careful, right? There's people that's always going to come at you and say, hey, I'm going to save you some more money. I need you to read the fine print. I need you to get down to the bottom line. I need to make sure you know what you get into. Know the difference between non-recourse and recourse factoring. That is very, very important. So understand those things. And if you don't understand, make sure having those conversations and asking those questions. Stop skipping to page 9 of the DocuSign and just putting your initials on there. But
That's right.
Now's the time to double down on our business, double down on ourselves as being students. And then making sure that as you're signing any agreement or you're getting in any relationship such as that, I need you to make sure that you're reading the fine print and make sure that the relationship is mutually beneficial. Making sure that you're benefiting from that perspective, it meets your business needs, and then when you do that, make sure you plug that into your break-even calculators to understand that what that does to your bottom line, and if you're able to do so. So I'm glad she brought that up. That was a great question.
Yeah, and keep the mic, Adam. I want to kind of go into that, right? I want to talk about efficiency, right? Because as we all know as business owners, it's not what you make, but it's what you. All right, so talk to me, Adam. How do we run an efficient trucking business?
So number one, you can't outrun inefficiency. So if you've got a truck that you're operating at a 2% margin on and say, hey, man, I'm struggling, I'm going to have to buy 3 or 4 more trucks, that is not the answer. One of the things that we talked about as far as efficiency is focusing on the things that you can control. And I'm telling you that your fuel costs are the number one variable expense that you have. And I don't care if you heard me talk about this about 30 minutes ago, you're going to hear me talk about it again. The average tractor trailer, one truck operation is going to cost you anywhere between 14,000 to 15,000 gallons of diesel fuel if you're consuming it at a rate of 6.5 miles per gallon. The thing is what you want to do is you want to take that mile per gallon consumption and you want to increase it as much as possible. So you want to increase your mile per gallon efficiency up as much as possible, because the difference on 1 mile per gallon, when you think about it at the end of the day, that's thousands of gallons of diesel fuel that you can save if you go in the same direction, the same distance, and you take that and multiply it with the average diesel price today, which is, what, $4.13, I think? You take 2,000 gallons and multiply it times 4. If you don't want that $8,000, I'll give you my Cash App, and I'll take that from you as we speak.
That's
but
right.
You have to understand that you have to operate with the big mindset of a mega carrier. Operational efficiency is extremely important, lowering your variable expenses. Number 2, I think the thing is and I'm going to say it again, you got to slow the trucks down. your truck at 62, 63 miles an hour, you won't be cool. You won't be in the hammer lane. You're going to be over on the right side of the truck, but you will, with proper planning, with proper trip planning and making sure that you are doing at the right moments, slow that truck down. You know, you might not be able to run 70 miles an hour, 75 miles an hour. You might need to bring that down to 64, 65 miles an hour so you can save on fuel. These are the incremental things that you can do, you can control. Your right foot is owned by you. You control that. And that's one of the things that you can do to impact fuel costs from an efficiency standpoint. The next thing that I look at from an efficiency standpoint is sometimes you got to cut out the things that are you got to trim the fat. And you got to make sure that you're doing that. And when it comes down to trimming the fat, there might be a service that you have now that might be something that you don't necessarily need. You might have to cut that out for a little bit and double down on that. When it comes down to tires, man, you got to get one thing I do love about Love's is they got a tire pass system. Right? You go in there, you run the trucks through the tire pass, it'll tell you everything you know about tread mismatch, all that good stuff. It's really, really important because tire pressure has a direct reflection on overall miles per gallon. Miles per gallon in tires is an immediate correlation to that. And I'm telling you, getting my tire changed at a TA for about $300 is a lot cheaper than getting my tire changed in Midlothian, Virginia at $800-900 on the roadside. So controlling every bit and every component that you can from an efficiency standpoint is important. And before you think about anything else in terms of scaling or downsizing, which there's sometimes, this is a market that you got to have those conversations. You got companies these days and CEOs doing layoffs, right? Everybody sees them all over the news. They're laying off. Well, you know, at some point, as a business owner, as tough as that decision may be, efficiency may mean that you need to cut down from 10 trucks to 6. And that might be a hard decision that you have to make because you, as the CEO of your company, you're responsible for being that student of your own business. So you got to understand that. But I'm telling you, one of the things that I saw, even when I ran trucks and as an owner-operator myself, when I became much more disciplined with my business and said, you know what, this fuel thing, we got to get it under control. And as you do that, you incrementally take better control in terms of efficiency. Negotiating insurance is very important too, making sure you stay compliant. And when it's time to do your insurance, it's time to have those conversations. Show them what you got going on. Show them your safety program. Show them that you're a prudent carrier. Shop your rates. When it's time to get your insurance renewal, stop waiting until 2 weeks before you got to do a renewal to shop it. 30, 60 days out, I need to be shopping. Get your loss runs report, start shopping your rates, and find a rate that you can get because you're stuck with it. Those are the fixed costs that you need to make sure that you manage. So I can go through all of the variables and fixed, and I know that we don't have time, but those are the few things that I think from an efficiency perspective that we need to do a better job of taking the handle.
I love that. I love that. Great. How much time do we have, guys? How are we looking on time? I want to take 10 minutes? Perfect. I want to take a second to open up the floor to anybody who has any questions. You guys have subject matter experts here on the stage, so I want to open up the floor. Does anybody have any questions specifically about their business that we can kind of speak to? Yes, sir. Let me run the mic to him. 1 second. If I fall, don't laugh, guys. I didn't fall. I'm good. Rodney. Talk to him, Rodney.
Thank you. I have a question for OTR. So recently I just noticed that from our factoring company, they're secretly, and I read my contract, by the way, Adam, but they're actually changed and they're actually deducting a small percentage and it's automatically going to reserves, right? And so although they have, 2% factor rate, right? But then behind the scenes, they're automatically taking another additional percentage and taking it to like a reserves account. Do you guys operate that way or any practice like that?
All right, I know I need 2 mics now. Where's the other mic? There we go.
Great question, Rodney. And this sort of speaks to what Adam was just saying, that not all contracts are created equal, and you've got to look at that, especially in this financial market right now, where honestly it's costing factoring companies a lot more money to borrow the money to buy the invoices than it's ever cost before. So factoring companies are having to raise their rates based on the small fine print in the contract that allows them to do that. And that's actually right now a great point, is that we're seeing other factoring companies do that. No, we have no hidden fees. We have no minimums, no tiered rates. But other factoring companies may have that. And in fact, we're happy to look at any contract. We have a contract review at OTR. Honestly, no strings attached. You are not obligated to make a change, but if you need a team to pick apart the contract and say what exactly are the terms of this contract, whether or not you're shopping a factor or you're currently with one, we'll break that down for you because everybody deserves to know exactly what the contract states. But we have always said we are no hidden fees, no minimums, no tiered rates. You don't have to run everything through OTR. Granted, if you factor one invoice with one broker, yes, you're tied to that broker. It's not, it is broker specific, shipper, but it's a great question and everybody deserves to look at that.
For sure. Luke,
Yeah, so you talked a lot about...
stand up.
Yep.
We want to see you, Luke.
You talked a lot about getting dedicated freight, and I was just curious, about, especially with the new ventures here, what are some of the tips for what should be in the carrier packet? What kind of information can you get? Because it's going to be a grind getting them to the shippers to even look at you. What are some tips there?
So that's a great question. When you look at your carrier packet, one of the things I always recommend, making sure that you have a capability statement. Make sure that all your next codes, you got a SCAT code, those things like that, so you can be tracked very quickly. Within that as well, you got to make sure you have a website. Your website is your home office. Your website should represent you better than anything else. When people see your website, they should think that they're dealing with a mega carrier. One of the things, too, when it comes to a website, don't get a cookie-cutter website if you're a trucking company. If you go to, for example, I'm going to just throw out JB Hunt because I'm looking at their sign-up. If you go to JB Hunt's website, their very first tab on their website is Shipper Solutions. So as a customer and as someone that is looking to do business with a carrier, I'm showing that Shipper Solution is the very first thing that you're focused on. You have to be very intentional in that website design to show that. You also want to make sure you have differentiators, okay? And when I talk about differentiators, Luke, is that you got to make sure, because when you pull your truck up beside mine, it's got the same engine, same crack on the windshield, and same pissed off driver. The only difference is the type of service that I'm providing. And when it comes to a differentiator of service, these shippers these days, they want full transparency. And I'm not talking about rate transparency. They want service transparency. And service transparency comes by way of shipment visibility. I don't want to look at your ELDs. Don't give me your ELD logins. That's a bunch of crap. I want to be able to log into a system just like I can log into Uber and find out where my car is. I want to be able to log into a system and find out where my $200,000 worth of freight is. So when you're presenting yourself as a carrier, you got to bring something to the table. Don't come in and I'm going to piss somebody off, but stop the entitlement. Just because you got a truck and trailer doesn't mean anything to anybody. Everybody in this room does, right? So now we have to deliver a business solution. We have to provide solutions, and I love the word OTR solutions. You have to provide a solution. As a carrier, when you're looking for dedicated freight, your problem is that your shipper needs a shipment solution. And then when you're identifying shippers too, you might want to go in and you're going to Google, and I'm going to give you a little bit of hint. If you go on Google right now and you Google whatever small town you're in, or big town, it don't matter, put your zip code in that so it'll pull a pin drop, go back to the left side of the page, and I want you to type in the word manufacturer or distributor. What it'll force Google to do, it'll make Google pull up within that parameter all the distributors and manufacturers in that area. And if I pull up a manufacturer that's in your zip code and they don't know you, then Luke, me and you got a problem, right? Because they need to know what you're doing. Be prepared to do that. And then one last thing, you got to wear your brand, okay? Don't go into a shipper, don't get on these conversations, and make sure we got technologies these days. When you're going to call a shipper and if you're going to set up that call, do it on Zoom. Let's look face to face. I want to look at you right dead in your eyes and I want to have a conversation with you. And the thing about that is to my folks in here, that all my small carriers in here that got their logos and things like that on your shirt, shout out to you because you're wearing your brand. You're rocking your brand. Ain't nobody in this room is going to care about your business more than you do. So that same mentality has to approach.
That's right. That's right. All the small carriers in here, give yourself a hand, man.
Shout out to you. Shout out to you. Shout out to you.
Shout out to you guys. All right, we got a couple minutes left. Who else? Oh, we got a question over. I already forgot about you. Look at that. Got to take my ginkgo biloba.
Good. I appreciate you.
Let's get it.
Hey guys, so my question is, once you get through those initial stages of having your business established, now this year as we're going through these ups and downs still, what is your advice between if I'm plateauing right now, what is your advice as far as scaling to that next level, right? Or is this year just really riding the wave and trying to survive as a small business owner?
So I'll start since I got the mic and I'll pass it down. When it comes to scale, you got to make sure that when I look at scale and when I'm evaluating a company on scale, I want to look at your PLs for the last 2 quarters, and I want to see either I see growth within that net, or I see at least you staying consistent with the net, especially if your net is above 15, 20%. If you got a 3% profit margin when you're doing your business, it's not time to talk about scale because you're too close. You're a breakdown away. You're a driver quitting away from going out of business. So that's not the opportune time. So I look at that. And I look at capacity from me as a perspective of the CEO of my company. If you're a single company operator, meaning that you're the CEO, CFO, accountant, marketing person, HR person, therapist, if you wear all of those hats and one truck is driving you crazy, and I say this all the time, that if you have one truck and your process and systems are not in order, one truck will make you feel like you're running 100 trucks. But if you have your systems in place and your processes in place, 100 trucks will make you feel like you're running one. So then I look at processes and systems and see how important and see if I got everything in order. This is 2023. There are technologies out here that can do everything. And if we're not implementing those technologies and we're putting everything on a manual perspective, you as a single operator are going to feel the burden of that weight. So I look at capacity, I look at profitability, and I look at, if you're a fleet owner, I look at if you're able to retain drivers. If your driver retention is crap, then you don't need to be talking about scaling. You need to go to a seminar or something and get better at treating your drivers, because you want to make sure that you have somebody in the seat of your trucks at all times. But you got to be very cautious.
I want to give Dean a chance to answer this too, but I just want to say, if you've been in trucking, you know that this is a cyclical industry. I mean, we have ups and we have downs, and right now we're in a down. So it's really about we feel very much like you gain the most ground in the uphill climb. And right now, we're down here and we're waiting for that climb again. It's about retaining the drivers. It's about setting yourself up and having a great reputation with the brokers that you're working with. And when because it's, having gotten in this market in the last 6 months is very different than having gotten in this market in 16 months ago. So yeah, there is a little bit of hang in right now, in my opinion.
I agree. I think this is the time to really keep everything really close. Shippers are acutely aware that the market is going to turn and capacity is going to tighten and rates are going to go up. Every single one of them knows that. So until that happens, that could be the second half of this year. Before we start to see that happen, now's the time to really knuckle down and make sure you're in control of your costs. Because I think it's survival mode right now for the next 3 months, because there's so many unknowns. We have a manufactured recession. We had a freight recession the last half of last year. It looks like it's kind of hanging around a little bit now. We still haven't got a lot of clear indicators about which way the economy's going. Right? And until you see things like single-family homes starting to get built in increasing numbers, and lots of produce rolling, and lots of imports coming back into the country at all of our ports, we're not really going to know how good the second half of this year is, because we still have uncertainty. There's a thing that Grace talked about, seasonality. For a lot of years before the pandemic, this industry is very seasonal. You could predict the seasons. Each quarter of the year, there's 4 distinct seasons. That hasn't happened in the last 3 years. And the market is struggling to get back to seasonality. There's this inertia, so we're still not there. I'd be knuckling down and slowing down and cut my idling back to 600 RPM if I'm sleeping in the truck. I'd do everything I could. I would also, if I could take 1 minute, don't focus on rate per mile. That's a mistake. Got to focus on, and Grace mentioned it, revenue per truck day, because time is your asset, right? Time, no good being under a $1,200 load for 2 days when your daily truck rate is $1,200 a day, right? The revenue per truck day is that's what you got to focus on first, and then the rate per mile comes along after that.
Stand up, sir. State your name.
My name is John. I have a question for you guys. We're seeing warehouses pop up everywhere. I read some articles a while back with regards to the transition of the long haul, cutting it down to about 400 to 450 miles. Do you guys have any insight on what is that going to do to the trucking industry? My thought is with them supplying these warehouses, there not being as much demand to get the product where it needs to be as quickly, and that having an effect on our rates as well. You guys have any insight on where that's leading to with all these warehouses?
I can have a crack at it. I think we've seen the length of haul the length of haul increased during the pandemic, so it got longer on dry van and reefer. Reefer's always got a long length of haul anyway, but dry van length of haul went up during the pandemic because we were pulling a lot more freight from imports, West Coast, moving it all over the country, so it dragged up the length of haul. It's come back down to about 648 miles for dry van. That's the average length of haul. What this shift in moving warehouses closer to regional, urban populations is, it's created a lot more regional freight. So you've got long haul freight moving into distribution warehouses, and then there's a lot of growth in regional distribution. So that's what I think there's a huge growth in that, not just for truck, trailer, lift gates, side door trailers, all those sorts of things, but in straight trucks, which we saw at Truck and Hustle. A lot of folks have final mile, white glove, lift gate type services because there's a lot of people still buying things online rather than going to a shop to buy it. That trend has stuck. So I think it's just changed the distribution. We've got long haul freight moving, but remember, the percentage of freight that moves over 1,000 miles is like 5% of all loads in the country. 75% of all freight moves under 100 miles. Right? So you're going to think about a trucking business, I wouldn't be thinking long haul, because that's where you're going to burn all the fuel, you're going to spend all the time idling and have 34-hour resets in truck stops and get lonely and bored and eat too much food. Right? You want to be in that short haul, regional, home every other night deal. And that's where I think there's growth.
Yeah, I just want to add just a little bit to that point. Even as an owner, operating a fleet owner myself, I want to shrink that length of haul. I want to maximize my rate per mile, but I'm looking at over my break-even point. But what I'm seeing, and just from a customer perspective, we got to think about it from a customer perspective. If I've got a warehouse that's in between Georgia and Charlotte, and I've got loads originating in Jacksonville, if it can be facilitated out of that Georgia market, it can get to me quicker. So it's also about speed to market from a customer perspective. Amazon has done made a big influence on availability and speed to market. You go on, you can order a product, you can have it delivered the very same day in some areas, and the only way it can be facilitated in the same day is if they've got a warehouse in your particular market. So you're seeing these final mile solutions, these last mile solutions popping up. So just to be able to get the customer the product quicker, and I think that it's not necessarily things that pushes the rate down itself from just having warehouses pop up. It's going to help demand and help alleviate some of that demand in the same sense. So I don't look at it as a negative, but as a customer, you want your product faster. If I got to wait for a product to come all the way from California, then I know it's going to be a 2-day transit if it's on a team truck, or a full week transit on a solo driver. But if we can start putting little micro warehouses in place to help speed that up, then it gets the product to the customer faster.
All right, guys, listen. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right, cool. All right, we're running. We could do this all day, but we're running tight on time. Before you guys go, I got to give my little shameless plug real fast. Does everybody scan the QR code up there? Make sure you scan that. You can check us out, Truck and Hustle. Go to YouTube. If you want more of this type of information, it's all there at Truck and Hustle. Also, I want to talk about Freight Fest in Houston, September 28th through October 1st. It's just Truck and Hustle on steroids, man. Everybody's going to be there. It's an amazing event. Make sure you're there. And lastly, I need one favor from you guys. I know we got some Hustle fam in the building, but the way we end our show to keep on encouraging our entrepreneurs is we have a saying, right? And we say, if you smell something burning, it's only your desire. Y'all got that? If you smell something burning, it's only your desire. So before we wrap, I'm going to tape this. I need everybody to participate. I'm going to say, if you smell something burning, and I need y'all to yell back to me, it's only your desire. Do you understand the assignment? Yes. All right, let's try it. One time. If you smell something burning, it's only your desire. Hold up. One more time. If you smell something burning, it's only your desire. One more time. Let's take the building down. If you smell something burning, give it up for this amazing panel. Thank you so much, Mats. You guys have been great. Thank you.